Hey guys, Sean T. Phillips here. Welcome to December 24th DVD update. We'll talk about all the DVDs and Blu-rays I've gotten over the last 2 weeks or so. Like I say, you guys enjoyed these update videos. Definitely give this video a thumbs up. Leave me comments below and you guys thought of the titles I checked out this update. Any titles coming up that you guys like me to review for future updates. Some of the things you guys have picked up recently. Now, the first one I got from Lionsgate is The Blair Witch, which is the brand new Blair Witch film. I actually like this one a lot. It's actually directed by Adam Wingard, who directed, You're Next and VHS. Always really like his movies. I've been a fan ever since the movie Homesick, which was like one of his first movies. It's a great movie with Bill Moseley, Tiffany Shepis. Always really liked that movie, and Bill Moseley was really creepy and weird in that movie. It was such a cool movie. And the thing that's kind of cool about this movie was, up until very soon before it was released, up until Comic-Con, the movie was only known as The Woods, and no one even knew that it was actually a Blair Witch movie. And they even have a thing on here in the features when they show, at Comic-Con, how when they actually had the reveal at the first screening our first, real screening of the movie when they revealed the title. And, I remember at Comic-Con, too, this was at last Comic-Con, I had all the posters up for The Woods, and then right when the reveal was done, the Lionsgate booth changed out all the posters to the Blair Witch and was giving out posters for the Blair Witch, and I think they were giving out posters before for The Woods, which is kind of cool how they totally kept this under wraps. And they, like I said, there's a feature on here talking all about this, but this is basically the brand new Blair Witch film. This is technically the first real sequel to the Blair Witch, because the first, the second sequel that they did, the first sequel that came out right after the original Blair Witch film, I never really liked that one, and it wasn't done found footage, it was done like a regular film, and I don't know, it's really forgotten about. It's like one of those ones, it was fine, it was just I never really loved that actual sequel. This is actually a real sequel, though, which is actually the brother of Heather Donahue's character, and it's basically him kind of never giving up hope that his sister is still out there. So him and his friends kind of go out there with cameras to do this documentary on kind of seeing if they can actually find her out there and seeing if maybe there's a chance that she's still out there because of this video that they find. And it's kind of like this whole thing of them going out there. And what's kind of cool, though, is it's kind of very much like the first Blair Witch film, but it's done now with, brand new technology and, GoPros and all the kind of camera equipment they have now, which is better stuff, and low lighting and all that kind of stuff that they have that's different. And there's a thing on here, too. The thing that's pretty cool is Lionsgate lately is really, really putting a lot of features on this. And this has an hour and 47 minutes of features, and it talks about the pre-production up into how they shot it, which is kind of interesting to see how they were filming this, since it's all done documentary style, and they show the camera guy and then the actor behind them, and how they were wearing helmets on their head for the GoPro kind of stuff. And it's definitely a very interesting thing on here. And it goes, like I said, all the way to when the movie was released. And it has on here, though, a commentary track with the director, and as well as a thing on here showing the house set, touring the house set with the director. But I actually really thought this was very creepy. It's a much more brutal and intense movie than the original one. The original one, too, I remember when that first came out, and how, as a kid, I was thinking, is this real? I remember, a lot of people were kind of thinking, was it real? And they even had, the actors kind of go missing after it was done, and, to try and really fool people to believe it was real. But I actually really like this one. Like I said, it's very much like the original film, but just way more of a brutal take on the whole thing. This is one, too. This is based on the book series, which I never have read any of the books, or I didn't even really know too much about the series. But it actually just caught me off guard with how emotional and had some really deep aspects of this that you weren't expecting at all. That this movie goes in certain directions with certain things that had happened. This movie's called Middle School: The Worst Years of My Life, and I actually really like this one a lot. It's basically about this kid who is kind of going from school to school because he's kind of a bad kid, or he's kind of misunderstood, and he's getting in trouble and keeps getting kicked out of schools for things that he's done. And he's kind of at the last school that he can go to before he ends up basically going to have to be homeschooled by the mom because no other schools in the district will take him because he's gone through all of them. And he gets to this new school, and he meets this one kid and becomes friends with him. And the problem, though, is there's this principal of the school who's this real stickler for rules, and he has this rules book, and he's like, you can't do this, and no having fun in the hallway, and no loud music. And he has all these kind of things that he doesn't want you doing. This list goes on and on of all these rules. You can't wear colorful clothes. You have to wear neutral tones, and you can't. It's all these things. This principal has all these rules for everything, and this kid gets there, and he kind of him and his friend kind of like want to go and like, because he like the kid like draws pictures and animates things and stuff like that in the sketch pad that he has, the principal ends up destroying this, and this kid basically says that, you know, he is going to, you know, basically go one by one and like defy the rules and like pull pranks on the principal, and he's like doing all these kind of pranks on him, like dyeing his hair and putting all kinds of like weird things in his office and just basically messing around with him the whole time and really making the principal's life miserable. It was kind of reminded me a little bit of the movie Big Fat Liar, when, you know, Frankie Muniz was kind of messing with Paul Giamatti's character for what he did with stealing his script. It kind of has that sort of vibe to that movie. It has Efren Ramirez in this too, you know, who is in Napoleon Dynamite, and he's like plays the janitor in this movie too. I really like this. I also really like the actor that plays the principal. He's in a lot of stuff as like principals and those kind of roles, and he's really good in this. I don't know. I thought this was a very fun movie. It has on here though some featurettes on here, a gag reel, and deleted scenes. The next one from Lionsgate as well is Deepwater Horizon, which is based on a true story. This is basically about the, you know, the BP oil spill, and this is kind of, you know, kind of like shows exactly how that spill had happened. And it's, you know, Mark Wahlberg and Kurt Russell, who are both on this you know, the oil rig where this happened, and it's kind of like it's, like I said, it's all a true story, and it's Mark Wahlberg's character, and his character, you know, that he plays is someone who goes out onto this oil rig for like, I think like 20 days at a time, and his wife has to stay back at home, and he just goes out there and like works on it. And this oil rig where they're, you know, he goes to work is having a lot of problems. It's having a lot of issues with, you know, like I said, this is all true. They're having issues with, they're like all the tests that they're running on it is not really working. It's coming back with all these errors. They laid cement where the thing goes down to drill for the oil, and like they didn't give it enough time to set. And the BP guys are kind of there, like breathing down their necks, saying like, you know, we got to get this going. We're like, you know, 30 or 40 days late. You know, we're behind schedule because of this. We've got to, you know, get moving on this. And they're kind of rushing things along and kind of speeding it along. And what ends up happening though is this is kind of showing how, because of what they were doing, was speeding along and not really doing the proper testing they needed to do and rushing everything along, how it ended up happening. And it goes on to show the terrible explosion that happened on the oil rig, you know, what's led up to the huge oil leak into the ocean and all the kind of effects that had happened. But this really focuses on how this explosion had happened, the build up to that, and then the rescue of, you know, Mark Wahlberg trying to rescue the people who are in this while this whole thing is on fire. It's a terrible situation, and it really was done, you know, to extreme detail of showing exactly what they were doing and the testing that they were doing and how it ended up leading up to this happening. But it has on here, though, a bunch of different features. One of the interesting thing was it shows like the behind the scenes through a lot of different camera angles, showing the explosions and some of the effects they did in this and how they actually did a lot of this stuff practically. It has on here, I think, like an hour of interviews and stuff like that with the main cast members talking about the film, and then a thing on here talking to the director about the movie. But definitely a very interesting piece, like if you guys are interested in this, and you know, like showing exactly how the whole thing had happened. The next one from Lionsgate as well is volume 1 of Saban's Power Rangers, you know, Dino Supercharged, and this one's called Roar. This is like, you know, before this season was Dino Charge. This is supercharged because, you know, with a lot of the seasons, they usually how they go is they have like one or two seasons of it, like one version, and then all of a sudden it becomes like the super version of them. And this one is, you know, supercharged, which is basically, you know, the main villain from the first series of the show ends up getting destroyed. And the Power Rangers, who were basically the way they became Power Rangers in this version of the show was through these crystals that were like from these dinosaurs, and they found these crystals, and then it was like this evil alien that was like trying to get the crystals and sending like bosses to fight them and things like that. And like the first season ends with them destroying this villain, and now a new villain is back, and the Power Rangers, you know, didn't know about this, and they thought they finally had won, and it's like the new villain coming after them, and then trying to get the crystals and trying to destroy the Power Rangers and kind of get control of everything. And that's essentially what the show is. I actually think this is a pretty fun series of the show. Like this you know, current cast that they have, and I think like I said, they usually do like 2 seasons and then it becomes a whole nother group of Power Rangers. But it has on here, like I said, 10 episodes of the this is like the latest of all the Power Rangers. The next one here from Arrow Video UK, but this is actually, I mentioned though, I didn't know this one was, but it actually is an all regions Blu-ray disc, so there's no region coding on this specific title here. This is the Guyver. Now, this is the director's cut version of the Guyver, but like the theatrical cut was a little bit gorier, I think. And I don't know if I had ever actually even seen the theatrical cut. I don't know if that ever released, maybe on VHS. I don't know. I feel like this is the only version I had ever seen. This is a movie, though, that I used to always watch as a kid a lot. And I probably hadn't seen this movie in like 15 years and totally forgot that Michael Berryman was such a huge role in this movie. But it's basically, though, about this like type of machinery, this alien type machinery where if you get it, it kind of turns you into the Guyver and you're like this fighter and things like that. And it turns you into, gives you like superpowers and things like that. And it's Michael Berryman and his group of like his cronies with him that are trying to get the Guyver back. Of course, so this guy found the Guyver technology and he ends up, it fuses to his body. And it's basically Michael Berryman and these guys trying to get it back from him, and they kind of had like weird experiments done on them, so they're turning into like creatures and stuff like that. This movie is really all about like the creature effects and like the crazy monsters and stuff that they become. There's some very, very cool monsters, and Screaming Mad George directed this movie, and he's like really known for doing like crazy like gore effects and creatures effects and that kind of stuff. Like he did the effects in the movie Society, so I love that movie. This is actually a very fun movie. It really does have that feel though of like Power Rangers and stuff. Like, I can see though why they made a cut of this movie be more PG-ish or PG-13ish, is because it does feel more like a kids movie. Like I said, I don't know if I've ever seen that more intense version of this or not. I don't know if it's, I don't think it was ever on DVD or anything as far as I can remember. But it has on here though a brand new interview with the producer on here, as well as, like I said, it's the director's cut version of this one on here. The next one here too, this is one that I don't think I had ever seen before in the past. This one is a Region B release, so make sure you have a Region free player that can play Region B discs for this one. This one's called Hellgate. This was originally though on the set with in the U.S. with the movie called The Pit. But I don't know if I had ever actually watched it before. And this is basically about this like really weird town. It's like a ghost town where they have like ghosts, like kind of like a old abandoned kind of like cowboy kind of town where they have like fool's gold and people acting like cowboys shooting each other and all that kind of stuff. But it's got like this really weird past to it. And this one girl had ended up like dying there, and like she ends up coming back from the dead and like haunting the whole town. And it's like it's really hard to explain because like there's this really weird crystal thing that can bring things back to life, and it also can like turn things into weird type, make them like blow up and stuff. And it starts with these friends like telling this story about about the town and what had happened and things like that. And then of course though they end up going to stay in this town, and then weird things start to happen to them there. It's a very, very peculiar movie. Like it's very hard to explain, and it's like it's one of those movies too that like goes in all kind of different directions of what it's about. And like the one guy was from some show too. I can't remember what it was. I think it was John Travolta was on the show, because I was reading about it, they were like, I had a lot of stuff to say about him and like the kind of weird things that happened to his character in this. It was like I just thought it was a fun, like kind of silly movie. But it has on here though an interview on here with the director, and then as well as what's some of the other things on here? The Video Nasty on here, Kenneth Hall writing of the Puppet Master series, talking about like the direct-to-video horror boom. And this one is one I really like. This is another Region B release, and this is a Roddy Piper movie. A lot of times when you think of him movie-wise, I always think of, of course, They Live. And this is the other one I always think of. And I know they made like a sequel or two to this, and I've never seen them. And I don't know if he was in the sequel or not. But this one is Hell Comes to Hell Comes to Frogtown. I always really like this movie. It kind of reminded me of like of Super Mario Brothers a little bit, with these weird type of creatures. This is like I think it was like 89 or late 80s this was from, and this is kind of around the time they were making a lot of those kind of like weird creature type things, and like when like people were like wearing weird suits and stuff, and it was like this is basically in the future when it's like the fall of the apocalypse, and there's all these kind of like all the men are like infertile now, and like Roddy Piper's character is like one of the few like that they can find men that like is able to actually have kids and not fertile males. And there's these really weird like frog creatures that are like taking over the planet and trying trying to like take over everybody, and they have all these women held captive, and Roddy Piper's character gets forced into trying to rescue these women, and they want him to impregnate them, so they have kids and stuff like that, and he has this weird thing he has to wear, you know, like almost like a chastity belt that will blow up if he doesn't do what he says. It's just a absolutely ridiculous, fun movie. I don't know, I've always really liked this movie. Has on here though, interview with Roddy Piper. I think this was probably filmed, because I guess it was from, I don't think there was, you know, he passed away about a year or so ago, so I guess this must have been right before, you know, when he did that. And it has on here though a thing on here about the what else was on here? The actor talks about his role in the movie, and a thing on here, you know, talking about the special effects in this movie. But like I said, I always really liked this movie. It has on here though like the reversible artwork too of the original cover of this movie. But like I said, this is a Region B release, so just keep that in mind though. The next one here from Sony is When the Bow Breaks, and you know, it says Morris Chestnut, Regina Hall, and Jazz Sinclair in this movie. And this is basically about Morris Chestnut and Regina Hall's character, and they really, really want to have children, and they've been having like terrible times with, you know, her getting pregnant, and she's been losing the children, and it just has not been going very well, and they've kind of at the end of their rope, and, you know, not knowing what they're going to do. You know, they think about adoption. They're kind of thinking about all the options of what they're going to do. They decide upon having a, you know, surrogate mother, you know, played by Jazz Sinclair, and they kind of interview people, and she seems like the absolute perfect person, you know, to do this, and she agrees to do it. And they agree, you know, that it will work out, and they, you know, plan everything out. Although, though, she has this kind of weird boyfriend, and the boyfriend, like, sort of starts off normal, then you start to notice this thing really weird about him, and he starts being very abusive, so she has to end up moving, and while she's pregnant, moving in with, you know, Morris Chestnut and Regina Hall's character, and they kind of watch her while she's there, and she becomes basically obsessed with Morris Chestnut. She gets, like, this sort of obsession with her, and you start to realize little by little that this woman is absolutely nuts, and it's like this whole crazy thing. It's one of those kind of movies, you know, there's been a lot of other movies like a similar kind of tone to this. One thing when I was looking at like reviews of other people talking about, they were talking about the movie called When the Can Rocks the Cradle, something like that. I think that one's in it. I don't know. I kind of comparing it to that a little bit, which I don't think I had ever seen that one. But I actually like this one. I like, you know, I always liked Morris Chestnut and Regina Hall, and I just thought it was like a good, like, tense thing about them just kind of dealing with this woman going nuts, as well as this boyfriend, and the whole thing of them just kind of figure out what they're going to do. But it has on here, though, 9 deleted and extended scenes and a commentary track on here. And this is one from Broad Green Pictures, and like I didn't know what I was going to think of this movie, to be honest, and then like it became like one of my favorite movies this year. Like I really like this movie, and it's a movie starring Kate Winslet and has you know, Liam Hemsworth and Hugo Weaving in this movie. It's called The Dressmaker, and it's you know, Kate Winslet is this woman who, you know, has basically left this small town where she grew up for years. She's not come back. Her mother hasn't seen her since she was a child, because when she was a kid, you know, it was, you know, she has come back because, you know, the reason she left in the first place was everyone has said that she killed this boy when she was a kid, and what she did to him, or how he died. And she basically is coming back and going to see the mother, and saying, you know, the mother though is like having dementia and like doesn't remember her, and like saying, I don't have a daughter, and all this stuff, and doesn't even want her back. So she's like forcing her way in and trying to help the mother out, but like, you know, she's like, I don't remember killing this boy. I have no recollection of this, but everyone thinks that I've done this, and the whole town, as soon as she comes back, is looking at her terrible, going, what are you doing back here, you murderer? And they all really hate Kate Winslet's character. They give her no ends of crap about coming back and what she did, and why are you showing your face here again? We never want to see you again. And she's basically there, and she wants to, she's basically there making, like, with her mother, dresses. She's, like, making dresses for people in the town, and she's helping out. Like, Sarah Snook's character really wants a dress, and then, like, the mother's like, why would you buy a dress from that woman? And this other woman, she brings in this other woman to be, like, competition for her, who makes these horrible dresses. And Hugo Weaving is this guy who's, like, the cop who was, in, you know, the one actually who sent her away for the murder, and he's there helping because he's obsessed with like women's clothing, and he's like wearing her dresses that she's making. It's just a very quirky, you know, and it's at times mean-spirited movie, you know, with her kind of mad about what had happened and what people had done to her, and it's kind of her trying to figure out if she did kill this boy, what had happened, and trying to remember what had actually happened. I just really like this, and it also deals with too her relationship with Liam Hemsworth, and I don't know, just a very quirky, interesting movie. It had that vibe too when she was like making the dresses of the movie To Wong Fu a little bit, like how when the drag queens came into town and they like were making the dresses and stuff, and like and helping everyone with fashion and stuff, they kind of like brought life to the town. She in a way was bringing life to the town with these dresses she was making, but at the same time many people didn't want her there as well. But has on here though a thing on here talking about the dressmaker, because they really have amazing costumes and wardrobe for this one. The next one here from Well Go USA. This is the brand new Phantasm film, Phantasm Ravager or Rave. I think that's how you say this, Ravager. I believe this is the 5th film. I was really interested in seeing this movie, and this movie was actually made very secretively. Like I remember like talking to Reggie Bannister, who stars in this movie, at conventions, saying, "Oh, you think you're ever going to do another of his movies?" And he actually been working on this movie for years and years and years, but he always was like kept quiet about it, never told anybody up until about 2 years ago or so. Then they were like released this trailer all of a sudden, but he had been making this movie totally unknown, that no one even knew for years. They were shooting bits and pieces of it throughout the years. This is basically though Reggie Bannister's character, and he is out in the desert all by himself, driving around in the car, and he like believes that the tall man is after him still, and the main kid is no longer with him. But then like he's like racing along in his car when these spheres are all coming after him. And then he ends up waking up in an old folks kind of retirement kind of mental hospital. And then Mike, the kid, is there with him. And it's like something's going on. And he's like talking to Mike, and he's like saying, "It's good for you to talk to me, Reggie, and tell me about what you remember." And it's kind of making it like the whole thing with the whole Phantasm story might have all been in Reggie Bannister's head. And he imagined the entire thing. And it's kind of him telling the story and like leading up to how he gets to the where he is now, and then all the kind of encounters and things like that they're going through. Reggie Bannister though did an amazing job in this movie. Like he was so good in this movie. He really carries this movie. Like I said, he is the main star of this movie. He's in like the whole film, and like really did a great job with this role. And like I said, it's like just him carrying this whole thing. And this was done too right before Angus Scrimm passed away, so he's in this movie as well. And like he is so cool and creepy as a tall man. Like he was amazing in that role. I like this one a lot. Like I like all the Phantasm movies, and I thought this one just had a really cool kind of just like an interesting vibe to the whole thing. It was kind of turning the whole series upside down too, and kind of changing things around. But it has on there a commentary track with the director, behind the scenes, deleted scenes, and then outtakes and bloopers on this one. The next one from Image Entertainment, and this is one. It's interesting seeing this because it's kind of interesting because it has Nicolas Cage and William Dafoe together, again, because they had not done a movie together since Wild at Heart, years back. And this movie's called Dog Eat Dog. And this is not the greatest movie of all time or anything, and Nicolas Cage makes a lot of peculiar choices sometimes with some of like the way he acts a scene. I always usually like it, but he made like a really weird decision at the end. I mean, I knew what he was going for, but it was just kind of odd what he was doing near the end of the movie a little bit. But I did like it for the most part. There was some like memorable scenes in this one, mainly the stuff with William Dafoe. Like William Dafoe like took it to a crazy level in this, especially the beginning when he ends up killing his girlfriend and the daughter. He's just like going nuts. And that's the only thing is that death and all that, the way he was acting was a little out of place because he wasn't acting that insane for the rest of the movie. It was kind of a little weird. Like it felt slightly out of place. He was like that, and then he wasn't really as nuts throughout the movie. But this is basically though about Nicolas Cage and William Dafoe and one of their other friends, and they ended up 3 different guys who were in prison for years, and they both got out like right around the same time. And when they get out, they don't really have any money, and they don't know what they're going to do, and they kind of go around and do like petty jobs for money. And they end up having this job that they're going to do, this big job to steal this baby and hold the baby for ransom from the thing. But then, of course, like everything starts going wrong with the whole thing, and they start having all this. Nothing really works out with these guys because they don't really know what they're doing, and like it's just all kinds of problems. Like I said, it's not like a perfect movie. Paul Schrader directed this movie. And, he's the writer of Taxi Driver, and, he's done a lot of really cool stuff, and, he directed Cat People, and like I said, I liked it. It's a very, very watchable movie, but there's just some odd choices and stuff like that in the movie with, like, especially this Nicolas Cage. Like I said, as much as I really like him, he does make some peculiar choices, with just some of the ways he plays certain roles. But it has on here, though, Nicolas Cage video introduction on here, a Q&A here with Nicolas Cage and the director, and a commentary track as well. The next one from Paramount is one called Coming Through the Rye. It stars Alex Wolff and Chris Cooper. And this is basically, they've never actually done a movie on, and still to this day, I don't believe they ever have, on the Catcher in the Rye actual book. This is like about a kid who, in the 60s, was obsessed with the book The Catcher in the Rye, and like he was kind of like writing his own almost like fan fiction, and he was writing his own play for Catcher in the Rye, and he really wanted to do this play, and he comes up with the the idea that he the only way that the school will let him do the play is if he can get permission from J.D. Salinger himself, and he comes up with trying to figure out exactly how to track him down, because everyone, if you know J.D. Salinger, the writer, and that just as he was as a person, he was always very mysterious and hard to find, and you really could never find this guy. He really didn't want to be in the spotlight or anything, and he wants to go and try and find him. So it's him kind of going on this road trip journey with this girl, from school, to try and find J.D. Salinger and convince him to allow him to, use this story and use the basis of The Catcher in the Rye for this play where he wants to play the role in it. It's definitely an interesting one. Like I said, it stars Alex Wolff here. The next one, too, from Paramount is one called Maximum Ride. This is based on a book series, which I've never seen the book series. It's from... I don't know what the name of the actual book series is. If they're called, I don't know what their name for sure is, but it's like I said, this is called Maximum Ride. I looked this up, and I think Jenna Marbles from YouTube was actually one of the producers on this movie. This is basically about, beginning of the movie, this guy ends up breaking out these kids from this kind of like medical kind of place where they're doing like experiments on these kids, and like these kids have like superpowers kind of things, and he ends up escaping with them. And the beginning of the movie, this guy has gone missing. And the kids now are all different ages, from teenagers to younger kids, and they're basically there to their own vices and not knowing where this guy is and wondering if he's going to end up coming back. And the people who, where they were from are coming after them, and they end up taking one of the girls, and it's basically about them trying to get her back and go on kind of a rescue mission to find her. And all these kids have like certain type of powers, like mainly is like to fly, and like it's an interesting thing. It's definitely got that kind of like sort of like a Twilight kind of feel to this one. Like I said, I don't know the books at all, so I don't know exactly the vibe of the books. I don't even know how many of the books they had, but it definitely, like I said, has that kind of Twilight type feel to it. The next one here from Uncorked Entertainment. And this is one I was really interested in seeing this one. Like, I always heard about this movie as well, because it's about the fantastic movie that Roger Corman made. And you can watch that movie like it's like bootlegs. It's like been released in bootleg DVDs at conventions, and I think it's on YouTube. But like the actual movie was never really released. And it's a movie that was from 1993 that Roger Corman produced and was supposed to be a big theatrical movie. It was going to go to theaters. Like, all the actors were told this was going to be a theatrical movie, a big film. And the whole thing was, this movie was just a sham because the guy wanted to hold on to the rights so he could sell the movie to Fox and make the Fantastic Four the bigger movies in the years to come down the line. And they had to make this movie in order to fulfill the contract of making the movie so he could hold on to the rights, but he never wanted to make this movie, and he never intended it to be ever released. So it's kind of a documentary about this movie and the cast members, who thought they were making this big film, and it interviews all the cast members, the director, even Lloyd Kaufman is interviewed in here because he was actually going to originally be one of the people they wanted to make the movie. It's a very interesting documentary, and very sad too, because it's like the cast members talking about how like they really thought this was going to be a big thing for them, and how they had this impression of what this was supposed to be, and it was supposed to be like a life-changing kind of movie for them, and they were working really hard on this, and the whole thing was a sham, and no one ever wanted them to see this movie. And they say too that the real print of this movie has been destroyed. That's what Marvel says. I feel like it's definitely, my take is I think it's in a vault somewhere. And the thing is too, like, there's a curse to the Fantastic Four movies, because like every Fantastic Four movies has got problems. Like the newest one, Everybody hated it. The other ones, nobody liked them with Jessica Alba. I thought they were okay. But, like, there's, like, this curse to Fantastic Four movies. Like, they can't make a Fantastic Four movie that doesn't have a major issue to it. So it's kind of like if they release this one in, like, HD, the actual movie, what's the harm of it? You know what I mean, to be honest? But I don't know. I really like this documentary a lot. It was very, very well done. I think if you guys are interested in, like, things about making movies where it goes really wrong and has a lot of problems, and you really hear about the origin of how the movie was made up until how it got released on bootlegs and all that kind of stuff, they kind of talk about everything in here. It has on here, though, a bunch of, like, outtakes on here, director's interview, a bunch of different things on here. But like I said, really thought this was a great documentary. The next one here from Umbrella Entertainment, this is an Australian release. But I checked it. It's region free, so anybody can play this one. It's set on the back region B, but I put it in a not region B player, not my region free one, and it played fine. It's a movie called Body Melt. It's got this really cool cover underneath. And then under here it has on the slipcover of the pill. But it's a very peculiar movie, but it's become one of my favorite movies. And I don't know how I never saw it till now. And it's an Australian movie. And it's basically like this weird type of health clinic is doing all these weird tests, and they have these kind of capsule pills that they take that are supposed to be like vitamins, and the vitamins are testing them on this small town in Australia, on these people in this small town. And the one guy ends up escaping from the place, and because he finds out what's in these things, and before he leaves, though, he's dosed this lethal dose of these vitamins in his system, and he starts melting down. It makes people melt and dissolve away and spit out their intestines and have all these gross things happen to them. And it basically just follows around the characters in Australia and this town as they're melting down, going to the clinic. And these two guys who are the most Bill and Ted-ish guys that are basically Australia's Bill and Ted. And they end up in this really weird inbred kind of farm when their car breaks down. And it's a really weird characters there and doing some really odd stuff. If you guys have seen this movie, let me know your take on this movie. But I love this movie. It is just so peculiar. Look at the trailer online if there's one up. I love this movie. I like really odd movies like this. This was odd and gross and peculiar and amazing. And the next one here is this is a region-free release as well. It's a movie called Long Weekend. This is one of those animal attack kind of movies, when all the animals kind of go bad. And it's basically this couple that goes out vacationing out in the middle of the kind of beach kind of area, and then something ends up happening out there, and the animals go out and start attacking them, and all the animals, ants, everything is kind of attacking them, and the dogs and everything turns on them. So it's them out there kind of fighting for their life out there, while everything around them is running havoc. And it has on here, though, interviews on here with the actor and the cinematographer on here, a commentary track, stills gallery on here, and a bunch of different other things on here as well. And the last one from Umbrella Entertainment as well is a movie called Girl Asleep. And this is this one is a region-free release as well. And this movie has and it even says on here is a quote, Napoleon Dynamite and Where the Wild Things Are. It kind of vibe to this, if Wes Anderson did it. And it definitely has that kind of feel to this movie. It's basically a coming-of-age movie about this girl, and she's kind of going through this awkward stage, and I think she was 14 years old, and it's this awkward thing, and it's her getting along with the popular kids, and she's friends with this one kind of nerdy guy, and they don't want her hanging around him. And it's just kind of it starts off one way, and then it's goes to these kind of fantasy type world that she goes into when she talks about the woods. And it's just these really trippy kind of weird things that she goes through in her life, while going through all these problems in school and life issues and all this kind of stuff. Definitely a very interesting movie here. And the next one here from Real Gore Releasing. This is from the company, they're called Epic's new line, Real Gore Releasing. This is a movie that I had heard about for a while, and it's fine. This is the first official release. I think they were selling it on their site before. It's a movie called The Orphan Killer, and I think I was at a convention where they had the guy dressed like this. I'm pretty sure at one point I saw that. And this is basically, though, about this. It's kind of it's sort of weird. It's this guy in the beginning of the movie. It's him and his sister, and the guy is him and his twin sister, and he guy's in the orphanage, and he kind of goes crazy and kills somebody, and then the sister ends up getting adopted. and he's like going around going nuts and killing people, and this is years later, and he's kind of going around killing people, and it's all set in a like Catholic school, and this girl who's the teacher there, and she's basically becoming like getting like hunted by this guy, and the guy is the stuff that the best stuff was in the beginning of the movie up until like the last 30 minutes when he was like going in the Catholic school and like killing like the people there, and it was like this really crazy, like it's a super splatter gore movie, like intense, like, you know, extreme gore, like, you know, total, like more like a German type extreme gore film. It's that got that kind of vibe to this. The deaths are like insane in this, and like I said, it was like some real crazy subjects matter of going on in this Catholic school and the people getting killed there. You know, at the end of the movie though, it wasn't as cool, you know. It was sort of as like it was in the beginning. It was still cool though. I really did like this one. I do kind of hope they do another one of these films. It's actually from like 2011, so I don't know if there ever will be a sequel or not. But I think maybe if there's enough attention for this release and more people get it, I could see they could do it. But it has on here though, I think it's like an hour and something long behind the scenes, and it's like all kinds of stuff, you know, as they were making the movie and stuff. But if you guys like extreme, you know, splatter type movies, check this one out. Now this movie here, you know, I really wanted to see this movie, and I have to be 100% honest, this is a mess, this movie. This is a serious mess, and it's really bad, but Johnny Depp was really funny in this movie. I like this character, and like it's watchable. Like it's like a, you know, it's a watchable movie, but it is a disaster at the same time. This movie is, you know, Kevin Smith's new movie Yoga Hosers, and like I'm not alone though. If you look at the reviews for this, everybody seems to dislike it. But to be honest though, you know, the Johnny Depp is watchable, and it's basically those stars, Kevin Smith's daughter and Johnny Depp's daughter, and who have been friends for, you know, since they were little kids. And it's kind of like Kevin Smith wanted to make a movie where they were together, and like they, you know, carried the film, and their characters were actually in Tusk, and this movie is technically a sequel to Tusk because this takes place after Tusk, and there's going to be one more movie after this, you know, which is called, you know, Moose Jaws. So I'm interested in seeing this movie, you know, that movie as well. Like I said, I like this in a weird way, and I like parts of it, like mainly the end of the movie was the best stuff. But it's basically though about these two girls who work at this convenience store, and you know, they get forced to work the one night because the one's father is going out on this hot date with Natasha Lyonne's character. And they basically, though, there's these weird sausage monsters played by Kevin Smith, and Kevin Smith's real over the top playing the sausage monster going, "You can smoke a sausage," and it's this ridiculous stuff. He's like, "Ooh!" It's like really bad, and you could tell he was like sort of stoned and didn't care when he was doing it. And it's basically, though, these sausage monsters that are Nazis that were created by this Nazi that's living in the basement of the store, and like he's like been in a deep freeze under there, and they're like having to kill these sausage monsters that were like, but they were not, they woke up too early, so they're little tiny sausage monsters. That's the movie. You know what I mean? That's all you can say. The next one here from Camp Motion Pictures is the double feature of Slime City and Slime City Massacre. And if you know me, I've always been a fan of Slime City. Like, Slime City is like a great movie. It's like one of those movies, too. You kind of always thought it was like a shot on video type movie, but it's not. They actually, you know, was shot on film. And it actually looks really, really good in this. I wasn't sure how it was going to look on Blu-ray, you know, because it's like a really older movie, and you never know like what kind of the print is, like how decent the print is, and it actually looks amazing, you know, for what this film is. And it's basically, though, this guy who moves into this apartment. And in the apartment, though, there's all these weird type characters that live there. And this one woman, this one kind of peculiar guy, and he's like has all his fridge with these weird like Himalayan yogurt, he calls it, and these weird wine type drinks and these liquor and stuff. And the one guy, when he first moves in, he comes down there, he says, "How about you come over for some nourishment?" And he feeds the guy, you know, he gives him that Himalayan yogurt and that stuff. And of course, though, there's something weird about that. And he starts melting down into slime. And the only way to, you know, and like, that's why it's called Slime City. And he has to go around and like, you know, kill people in order to turn back to normal again. And it turns out there's like something weird in the building where they're trying to like take this guy's body over because of this weird cult leader that lived there in the past. And it's just a very peculiar movie. really cool synth music in this one. I've always really liked this. It has a brand new commentary track on here. It also has the sequel on here, Slime City Massacre, as well in HD, which looks really, really good as well. Lloyd Kaufman has a fun cameo in that one. The next one here is the director's newest movie, and this is not bad. I just covered this, no one said anything. It's a movie called Killer Rack, and this is a really silly movie. It's basically, though, about this one girl works this job, and she's kind of feels like everyone's always giving her, like, you know, problems and never really giving the attention she deserves because she has smaller breasts. And she comes with this idea that she's going to get breast implants, and she ends up going to this place where it's played by Debbie Rochon, who plays this doctor of this place. And she works with Cthulhu, and she's like doing all kinds of weird, like praying to them, and weird type of stuff going on, where she wants to basically find the right person to do this thing to, where the one's breasts will like attack people and like kill people, and it becomes like all these crazy like deaths and stuff like that because of what she did, what she was going through and stuff. It's a very crazy, like off the wall type movie. Has on here though a commentary track on here, deleted scenes, behind the scenes, and bonus short films on here. But like I said, this one's called Killer Rack. And the next one here from Artsploitation Films is a movie called The Devil Lives Here, which is a very, very creepy movie. I thought this was actually very cool. And this is basically about this, you know, people who come to stay in this kind of house out in the middle of the woods, out in kind of the middle of nowhere. And the house has had all this like dark history with this like crazy guy who had these bees, and he had these slaves and stuff, and he was doing all kinds of terrible stuff to them and mistreating them, and like was doing all these weird stuff with the bees, and he ended up dying and getting like his baby like you know, killed on this nail in the basement. And the people who are, you know, staying at this house, the one guy tells the friends about what had happened there, and he says that he wants to try and, you know, free the spirit of the baby who died in the house. So they like do this ritual. Of course, though, by doing this, they end up getting that beekeeper guy, the bad bee guy, like the baron of the land, comes back, and he starts like, you know, hunting, you know, attacking them, sort of what's going on. And it's like really odd stuff starts to happen, and there's like these two brothers who are trying to stop what had happened, but they're kind of too late, and they're there as well, and then they're trying to figure out exactly what they're going to do to stop what has happened. But it's just a very, very creepy movie, you know, of all this kind of weird folklore and stuff like that. And like the baron guy was really very creepy. This is a very, like I said, it's like a kind of Evil Dead sort of vibe to this movie. Like I said, this movie is called The Devil Lives Here. And the next one here from Mondo Macabro is a movie called Night Has a Thousand Desires, which is a Jess Franco movie from 1984. So it was one of the later Jess Franco movies. And it's basically about this like this girlfriend and her husband, and it's like it's all told in like weird type of dream type sequences. Like she gets in this fight with her husband, and then he's like gonna leave her, and then she kind of like has all these type of dream sequences, and like kind of goes from one thing to another of kind of weird encounters and sex encounters and all these kind of odd things of all them sleeping together, and then she's like back in the bed with the husband again, and then it's like another one of these kind of weird trippy dream-like encounters. So it goes on and on and on to these different type of things, and that's essentially what it is. And if you know like Jess Franco's type movies, you know like the kind of vibe his films have, and it definitely has that kind of feel to this one. Has on here though a brand new HD transfer on here, interviews with the writer, documentary on here about Jess Franco and his films, as well as, you know, it has subtitles on this one as well. And the next one here from Draft House is a movie called Clown Forever, which is a sequel to the movie Clown. I've never seen the original film. This is basically about these two friends though who they're kind of like, you know, really good friends. They're always working together on things and working together on this kind of like screenplay type of thing they're kind of working on. And one of them ends up deciding that, you know, he's tired of living where he is, and he's tired of his life, and he wants to go to America and try and like have his own career out there. And the one friend is like, you know, and his friend is like has a wife and a kid, and the one who's getting ready to leave to go to America is like, you know, you've got everything here, you got your wife, the kid, and he's like, no, I want to come with you. So he ends up coming along with him, and the wife's all mad that he's leaving, and it's kind of them going to America and having these kind of weird encounters and odd things happen to them. And there's like this like them like, and it's all deals with like odd sex stuff, and like the one meeting these like prostitutes, and these weird things that happen. It's just a very, very quirky, strange, peculiar movie. I need to see the original movie, you know, because I have not seen this one. It has on here, though, deleted scenes, 3 outrageous full episodes from the Clown TV series, because there's a TV series of this as well as trailers on here. But definitely a very interesting movie. If you guys have seen the first movie, let me know how that one was. Like I said, I don't think you have to see the first movie. I'm sure it would help a little bit, though, with some of the stuff. And this one here is from Breaking Glass Pictures, and it's a movie starring Lucas Till called Sins of Our Youth. And this is a pretty interesting movie. It's about these kids. It kind of deals with like gun stuff, because it's these group of these friends that all like come over to one friend's house because his dad has all these guns and stuff, and they go and shoot off all these weapons. And there's this one kid who comes over to the house to kind of talk to one of them, and he ends up getting shot. They don't know this happens, and they find out that he was killed when they were shooting all these guns off. And they're kind of like, what are they going to do? They come with the idea of like hiding the body, and then they don't know what they're going to do, and they come up that there's no way to get out of this besides if they come up with a plan of, you know, going out and basically having like a surviving the game type situation where they go out there with guns and like go to shoot each other and kill each other, and only one can survive. And they film like these like different testaments saying, if I was the one involved with this, and you know, and then we had nothing to do with this, and this character is going out to shoot himself. And it was like this weird thing they were doing. They come up with this plan. It's kind of all this like, and it all gets all screwed up, and it's this, the idea of what they're thinking of doing is just insane, though. It has on here, though, behind the scenes in a Lucas Till interview. And the last one here from Wild Eye Releasing. This has a cool cover on this one. It's a movie called Wolf House. It's a found footage type movie, and it starts off with this guy kind of talking about that something had happened in this wolf house, and these people had gone, like, no one knows for sure what happened, and if it was like a Bigfoot creature or a wolf or exactly what it was. But and then when he's telling it, then it flashes back to the actual footage, and he's like, you know, check out this footage and you decide on what you think had happened. And it's kind of them watching back the footage. You know, the footage is playing back. It's a group of these people going out to these woods, and of course, though, they end up seeing this type of weird creature, which they think they end up shooting, and you know, ends up getting killed. But then, like, they're all getting like attacked one by this thing. What exactly it is? If it's, like I said, if it's a Bigfoot or a wolf type thing, and it's that kind of film. Like I said, a found footage type movie. Has on here, though, a director's commentary track, behind the scenes documentary, a thing on here about making the creature on here, as well as trailers. Anyway, guys, that's all for this video. Thanks again for watching and subscribing. I'll see you guys later. Bye.